are going to have a conversation today about how to win multiple offers, which, if you have not been in one yet, I'd be surprised if you've written an offer this year. And if you're new to the business, you know that the market is likely going to lend itself to you having an opportunity to be in the situation where you're competing. So what I want to do today is kind of highlight some of the strategies that I've learned over the years and what has worked for me, and how you can implement those with your clients. Remembering this one thing all the time is that your job as the real estate representative, as the fiduciary for your client, is to be the best messenger that you can. And through that, you want to be able to provide every bit of information to your client possible so that your client can make the best decision possible. Okay. And I say that, I open up with that because it's really important that we never feel like we're, over opinionating things or influencing a decision. Our job is to provide every single bit of factual information that we can pertaining to a property or a situation so that our clients can make the choice with regards to how they want to structure an offer, particularly if it has to be at the level of competition. So I want you all to also feel free to unmute yourself, ask every question that you can think of, and we'll have a conversation here. So here are some really good strategies. So get your notebook out and your pen, and we're going to take, I really want you to take some notes here. When you are showing a home, first and foremost, call the realtor before you even set the showing on showing time and verify that it is still available and that whether or not it has any offers on it currently, or if he or she is anticipating any offers currently. Because when you show up to the property and you're showing your client and they fall in love with it in the living room and you know you have to act quickly, you want to be able to have knowledge of where that property is in that moment, because nothing's worse than your client loving this property and you call excited on the way out and, oh, well, we just accepted an hour ago. So again, collect the information of what's going on before you even walk through the door. Okay. So when your client falls in love with the house and they want to make an offer, the very first thing that I suggest doing is calling the realtor, the listing agent first, because rapport is everything. You want to make it a priority to demonstrate that you are going to be kind and professional and effective, because you're also, let's face it, winning the listing agent over as well. Okay. We need to make the listing agent feel really good about working with you. As a listing agent with multiple offers, there are, it is definitely different when I know that I've got a really strong agent representing one of them. Okay. So you want to do your best to ask the right questions when you call the listing agent. And here they are. Are there any offers on the property? I know you told me there weren't any before the showing. Has that changed? And do you have interest? Okay. Because I want to know if other agents are calling and asking all the right questions. I want to know if other agents are teeing it up. Okay. I want to know if I'm even going to be in a multiple offer situation, because what you don't want to do is assume that it will be multiple offer and you end up not representing your buyer the best. Perhaps you went in with guns a little too loaded, assuming there would be other offers. Okay. So good questions to ask the listing agent are, what's most important to your sellers? Okay. Knowing that there are multiple offers and you're more than one buyer, what's most important to your seller? Clearly, price is going to be an important one, but what else? What does their closing timeframe look like? Do they need a little extra time? Have they gone shopping for a house yet? Or have they identified the property and they want to get this done as soon as possible? What does that look like? So it's nice when you can go back to your client, your buyer, and say, hey, buyer, they haven't even started shopping in this market. It's silly to do so. They needed to sell first. Buyer, would you be willing to give them anywhere from 30 to maybe up to 60 days to close? Give them a little cush room, give them a little space. Or you would also be able to glean, yeah, they have an offer on, they have a contract on another house and it's going to close January 27th. So would you mind to name January 27th? And I'll say, I'd be happy to name January 27th. So closing timeline is everything. If you have your buyer's permission to do so, I would also request if the sellers would like 2 days post-occupancy, 1 day post-occupancy. What that means is that if you close on day 0, then in the contract, you can allow the seller to delay their possession or post-occupy, those are the same words, for a determined amount of time. And what that does for the seller is it lets them close, usually on another property as well, and have another couple of days to move their stuff out. That helps alleviate many sellers from having to put all of their items on a moving truck overnight, which people do, but it's painful. It's very, very painful. Don't forget that you do represent your buyer first in these situations, and they need to be made very aware what that means for them and the risk that's involved if a delayed possession or post-occupancy is awarded. And I can answer any questions on that, but they're essentially landlords for the time of the post-occupancy. They own the home. Their home insurance is primary because they own the property at that time. They have closed. And there's just some risk, and there's a little bit of risk involved with it. It just is. When you allow a delayed occupancy, you definitely want to take your buyer through the final walkthrough before closing. And because that final walkthrough will often be a property that's still in moving process and you don't see all the walls and the moving truck hasn't had the opportunity to run over the front sprinkler system, you want to do a final walkthrough before delivering possession. Okay. Does anyone have any questions about delayed occupancy before I go on from that? Okay.
Real quick, does it happen a lot, more than often?
Okay. It's definitely more prevalent now that people are trying to do everything they can to win an offer.
Okay.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah. So asking about the closing timeline. Another question to ask the listing agent, aside from what do your sellers need to close? What do your sellers need? And, obviously probably maximum price. Is there anything else that would help your sellers to help my buyer get this property? They really want it. We show a little motivation. We show a little humanism. That goes a long way. I think that we can all agree that goes a very, very long way. So asking those important questions to see what the seller wants so that you can go back to the buyer and say, hey, seller's really looking for this. Would you be willing to do this, this, and this? Okay. Another piece of the conversation that will come up is the fact that you can strengthen an offer with how you work paragraph 10 in the sales contract, which is inspections and repairs. I do not, and neither does Brad Long, recommend that your buyer waive repairs, or excuse me, that your buyer waive inspections unless you are working with somebody who is a flipper, who has a lot of industry knowledge on houses, on repairs. And that is a truly unique person. And also be careful with that, because a lot of people think that because they watch HGTV, they think that they can handle what's behind that wall. And we represent these buyers, and we would be failing at our job if we had our buyers win a house because they waived repairs altogether, and then they inherited $15,000, $20,000 worth of foundation mold issues. I mean, that's not our goal. So people can do it. It's ultimately the buyer's choice. If they waive repairs, inspections and repairs, I strongly recommend that they have, that you have them initial something that said explicitly that they've made this conscious decision to waive all of their inspections. However, what you can do is in the provisions, you can state that your client reserves the right to inspect the property, and that your client also reserves the right to void the transaction and get their earnest money back should the inspections be unsatisfactory. Buyer does accept property in as-is condition and will not request repairs. And I know I just rattled that off, but if you ever need that language, you all can call me and I can text it to your email, or as a follow-up to today, I can do that as well. Basically, one way to strengthen it for the buyer who wants to lay it all out and do everything possible to beat out all the other buyers is reserve the right to inspect it, but agree not to repair. So heaven forbid, if something comes up in the inspection that is life altering or budget altering for them, they can walk away. When they're accepting it as is under those conditions, though, it is a good gentleman's rule and good standard of practice to stick to your word and not go back and ask for repairs, because there are agents who will do that, or buyers who will do that, unfortunately. Stick to your word. That can strengthen it as well. Another great way to strengthen your offer is to add an escalation clause. And here's what that means. An escalation clause says, as the buyer, that the buyer is willing to go X dollar amount higher than the last highest offer, and will only go up to this dollar amount. So the way that the language is, and if you've never written an escalation before, I strongly advise reaching out to an agent who can, because you want to make sure that you're very protected in it. But basically, buyer agrees to paying $1,000 higher than the next highest bona fide offer, bona fide net offer, up to $110,000. Require that the listing agent provide that next highest net offer in writing with acceptance, so that we can prove to our clients that this was completely done in an honest manner. And that is a fantastic way to have a one-up and still allow the buyer to have a ceiling on what they're going to do. When you're looking at that, make sure you use the language net offer, because you want to make sure that you're competing against the net. In other words, sales price and closing cost, so that it's a true clean slate for your clients when they are competing. Here is the nugget that I give my buyers when they're going to use an escalation clause as part of their negotiating terms. I say, look, buyers, when you say that you're going to go up to $110,000 on this property, please understand that you have shown a card, and please be prepared for that seller to go back and say, slash your escalation clause, write 110, and we'll get this done. Okay. Is that right or wrong or dirty or yucky? It's really none of the above. It is what it is. Just prepare them that might happen. It might not happen. And I think it's worth it to write the escalation to protect them in the event that they don't. There's lots of different opinions around that. I'm not going to speak to that because I can see both sides of that coin. But just let them know, hey, I just want you to know you're showing your maximum card. And the question I always ask with regards to any term that my buyers are writing, as I say, if this gets accepted, but we are laying out today, this is a really strong offer, are you going to be grinning from ear to ear at the closing table and really happy that you got this house based on these terms? I need you to say yes, because you're working hard to get this house. And they'll say, yes, Elissa, we will do whatever it takes to get this house. I'll say, great, here we go. All right. Any questions about escalation? Does anyone have, a lot of people have concerns about them, issues? Here's my biggest concern as a buyer's agent writing an escalation clause, and that is that the listing agent doesn't understand it, or that the listing agent won't communicate it properly to their seller, because a lot of agents feel overwhelmed by them. They get a little intimidated by it. I use them all the time. So it's kind of second speak to me. I just, they don't bother me. But in the beginning, it's very, very confusing for a new agent. And if you've got an agent who doesn't have experience with escalation clauses, just always assume that's the case. So when I write an escalation, I also I will call the agent and I will say, hey, I just want to make sure that you understand the language that I used for that escalation clause. I want you to understand that while they're going to start at 100 to 5,000, they're willing to pay $1,000 over the next highest net offer up to 110. Do you have any questions about escalation clauses? I know they can be overwhelming sometimes with multiple offer situations. And I make sure that that agent knows exactly what an escalation clause is, because do not assume that they do. I firmly believe that I've lost out before because the agent didn't understand what escalation meant. So keep that in mind for sure. Other ways that you could help strengthen your offer is it's always in spirit of keeping the offer as clean as possible. There's a lot of psychological impact to a seller when they receive an offer with a ton of writing all over it versus a super crisp, clean, easy to read offer. That goes a long way, you guys. That goes a very, very, very long way. So, great tactics for winning out in a multiple offer situation is avoid asking for anything beyond the check boxes as much as you can. If there's a way that your client does not require closing costs, that would strengthen it clearly. Even when you want to ask for closing costs, but your client's willing to go up in price. In other words, if they need $5,000 in closing costs, they may be willing to go 5,000 over list to have the same net effect. It's nice if you don't have to do that, because the seller on the other side will say, well, now I've got to appraise for 5,000 more than my list, and I'm nervous that I'll have an appraisal problem. One checkbox that's nice to have a conversation with your client is the home warranty paragraph. Home warranties are wonderful. I am a strong advocate for them. They have saved our clients a lot of money. However, it's a cost to the seller. So if you have a $500 home warranty, it's net $500 less for them on the price. So a great question to ask your buyers is, hey, home warranties are fantastic. I love them. Would you be willing to purchase the home warranty on your own to strengthen your offer by $500 or the price of the home warranty? Because you can reserve the right for your buyer to purchase it if you would like. That is a way just to clean it up, to pull that net as high as it can be. When you write up your beautiful offer, as strong as it can be on behalf of your client, and they said, yes, this is exactly what's going to make me happy at the closing table, Elissa, let's go for it. You say, great. Now, I recommend that we do a tight response deadline, because timing is everything with offers, provided that the sellers haven't named a response, because that's another situation. But if the sellers have not named we will respond to multiple offers by what time, you want to make it tight enough that they have time to talk about it. I mean, don't be the agent that calls up and says, I'm going to get this turned around in 1 hour. That's really, really hard to do. But 2 hours, 3 hours isn't unheard of in super tight situations. In other words, if you're asking for the seller to turn a response out in 3 hours, it is your professional courtesy to call that listing agent and say, look, I'm bringing you a really strong offer, but my clients really want it. And I want to give you a heads up that it's a tight turnaround time. I think you would probably do the same thing with a house like this. Does that pose an issue? I want to make sure it doesn't pose an issue, that you'll be able to connect with your folks. I'm sure you understand why we're asking for a really quick turnaround. And 9 times out of 10, they say sure. But your job as the buyer's agent is to keep other offers from coming in, because nothing is worse than you being up against two offers that you feel really good that you're going to beat out, and then that cash offer comes in and boom, rugs out from underneath of you and it's gone. You want to close that timeline as much as you can, but we have to be highly communicative on that response deadline and just responsible with it. Don't let it go overnight if it doesn't have to. Just be courteous best you can. Be smart about that if you don't mind, and communicate. When you have this beautiful offer written up, ready to go, send it in its complete form, along with all those documents that your seller agent needs. If you can send a copy of the earnest check, fantastic. Go on and send the seller disclosure, send the lead-based paint disclosure fully executed, any other supporting documentation that states, I've got my act together, I'm organized, I'll get what you need, and I will be fantastic to work with. Put it in a beautiful email with attachments. In the body of the email, state, my clients are incredibly motivated to be the buyer for your property. They love it because boom, 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 boom. If you have been given permission to share such information. I want to highlight the strengths of this offer. Purchase price. We're waiving home warranty. We're not asking for a home warranty. We're super clean and not asking for closing costs. We're willing to not ask for repairs on the property, yet we reserve the right to inspect it and void if something tremendously terrible came up. Hopefully it won't. We're not expecting it. And just kind of outline everything that you've done. Give them a nudge on every level to say, I'm bringing you the best I can. And on top of that, I'm really good at communication and I'm very professional. I'm going to be great to work with. Take my offer. So a lot of it, like I said, is in that presentation and going through the terms. The other piece that I want to talk about that you have pseudo control over, but you have a good amount, and you should have these conversations with your clients, is cash is going to be the strongest offer. We all know that. Not all of our clients are cash, and that's okay. They don't have to be. But when you're talking about their financing, most of your clients are going to be financing in some way, shape, or form. Their loan officer and lending institution is going to play a role if they are competing. You want to make sure, if at all possible, that they're aligning themselves with a lender who has a great track record, preferably one that you've worked with and you can personally vouch for, and one that does a good job. And be careful. Yes, Adam, thank you. Be careful, because on our affiliated business disclosure, it states clearly that we cannot tell them who to use. Again, going back to my original statement on this class, is that our role is to provide information that best sets our clients up for making the best choice that they can to get what they want. That's our job. And so when they're selecting lenders, you're going to learn quickly, if you haven't already, that some are better than others, and the ones that you have relationships for are going to be the best for you, and they're going to ultimately be best for your client, and that's what you want. So selling the lender to the listing agent is also huge. Assume they've never worked with it. I'll give Emmett Exum with Interlink Mortgage a shout out. He's one of the best lenders that I've ever worked with. I'll say, hey, Sally, listing agent, I also want you to know that my client is pre-qualified with Emmett Exum of Interlink Mortgage Services. Our team has done countless deals with him. We also use him personally. He will work quickly. His underwriters are in-house, and he is highly communicative. He will make our lives easier. He's fantastic. Okay, huge, 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 huge. Also, in terms of the financing paragraph, the amount down is going to help your clients compete. So it's important that you have the conversation. Just because they're stating in their pre-approval letter that they're going to put 5% down, go on and ask the question. I see that you're, going to put 5% down. Would you entertain the thought of putting maybe 10% down if it meant strengthening your offer and perhaps winning the bid? Because again, your buyers don't think in that vein. They may not know that the amount down on their house could be the make or break decision. And there are sellers that would say, I have this apples to apples offer. One's putting 20% down, one's putting 10% down. We're going to go with 20. Okay. It's just a lower risk for the seller. That that makes sense. That's a business decision at that point. So talk to them about the money that they put down as well. Typically your after cash, your conventional loans are going to be the next strongest usually. And then you get into your FHA and VA loans. FHA and VA loans are still fantastic. They just tend to have a little less down. They might be a little less competitive compared to conventional or a cash. Your clients may not be able to control that they're FHA or VA, and that's okay. We can only control that which we can, but just know that going in that that's a little harder to compete based on the loan product that your client is bringing. Going back to the loan officer or the lender conversation and the fact that we can't tell them who to use, it's also very important that it's unprofessional to be disparaging in any way, shape, or form. Even if bank ABC has failed you miserably time and time again and has failed the team down the hall, and we all know that they're terrible to work with, being disparaging won't help won't help you get your clients where you want them to be. Always speak in supportive terms. In other words, if my client says, hey, I got pre-qualified with Bank ABC last night online, I'm so excited, I'll say, fantastic. I'm so glad that you took that really important step. However, I want you to know, buyer, in this competing market, your lender is really important. And while I'm so glad you're pre-qualified here, I always encourage you to get a couple, 2, 3 more, I want you to have a couple more conversations with a couple more lenders. May I recommend a few that have done phenomenal work with us before? Because your lender has everything to do with the movement and the success of your transaction. Would it be okay if I gave you a couple of names, and would you be open to having a conversation with them? Oh, sure, Elissa. Yeah, because a strong lender can often win out in a multiple offer situation, and I wouldn't want you to lose out unnecessarily. So I would never say, don't use this bank. They are terrible. They never close. I had this terrible experience. It just never reflects well on you to say anything disparaging under any circumstance. So kind of make that little mental note as well on that. What else? What are your questions? I don't know. I don't see any of your wonderful faces right now. And I want to answer any challenges that you've had either on the listing side or the buy side of multiple offers.
Alyssa, I've run into several times where I've had multiple offers with multiple escalation clauses. So to do the math with that with the seller and to be able to prove it to the other buyers, agents, when the time comes that which offer was chosen, becomes a little bit more difficult to explain it and to understand it. So if there are newer agents here that get multiple offers with multiple escalation clauses, it takes some time to sit down and actually figure it out. So I found that writing a net sheet and being able to put it in front of the seller, put the numbers down and the alternatives if it were escalated, is an exceptional tool to explain what's going on and where their bottom line is. If their bottom line is their number one selling motivation.
Right. That'll also keep you as the agent organized, because your first time receiving multiple offers as a listing agent, there's a lot of pressure there. And there's a lot, it's very exciting. It's very fun, but getting the numbers correct, not missing a single term is vital. I mean, if you represent the seller, accuracy is everything. So when he says a net sheet, that's essentially a table that says offer 1, offer 2, offer 3, offer 4, term, so that they can see across and column wise what this looks like. I have also seen that Command has that capability and produces a beautiful sheet as well. When you get to that situation, if you're the listing agent negotiating.
Look, what I have and anticipate for the week to prepare, but we're very structured. Like for damage control, we've already built out 5 episodes, and now we're going to create the content. We need more of that. We need to go to.
Does someone have their movie or their video going right now?
Plan the first 2 quarters, like before the end of the year.
Let's see. I think we're gonna need to mute somebody. Yes, Adam, thank you for that very much. One other item that I want to bring up, little things that kind of make or break that you may not think of if you've not written or received many offers, is, asking for, making it easy on the seller, asking, for the kitchen appliances to convey is usually a given. There's nothing given ever, but that's fair to think about. But, leaving out the request for the washer and dryer, that could make or break a multiple offer situation. Or asking the seller to remove something, remove the shed. Well, the seller might say, I don't want to fool with that. So you really just have to put yourself in the seller's shoes and think, what's going to make life best for them? Because while you're not there to, if your job is to get the house for your buyer, you need to figure out everything that's going to make it easier for the seller, convey that to your buyer, and let the buyer make the choice upon which terms they're going to elect to come forward with. A common question that I have is, I'm the buyer's agent. What can the listing agent tell me? And here's the answer. The listing agent can only tell you that which they've been given permission by the seller to share. And they also can't tell you anything that's going to position an offer one over the other. However, as a realtor, you're always going to want to get really good at asking questions and be prepared to just ask questions until you get to a no, because some agents will share quite a lot of information with you. Okay. So I always say, after, do you have any other offers? And are you expecting any others? And if they say, yes, I've got offers, I say, how many offers do you have? Because I want to know if I'm competing against 2 or 5. That matters to me. It's an odds game at that point. And I'll say, are you willing to let me know if any of these other offers are contingent on the sale of another property? They will usually disclose that. Not always, and they certainly don't have to. So do not do this with a bully fashion. Don't ever do anything with a bully fashion. But I would just say, if you're comfortable sharing with me, would you let me know if, okay? And they might sound, are you comfortable sharing if any of your offers are cash? I usually get that one out of the listing agents. If you're a listing agent, you do not have to share that. If I were you and I were the listing agent, unless there was an overt reason that it is going to win your client more money, I would be nervous to share that. I would say, is there anything else that you're willing to share that might help my buyer get this house? And you would be surprised what comes out after that. Okay. So again, write the question down. Is there anything else that you would be willing to share that would help my clients get this house? They want to ask all the right questions. And some listing agents would lay it out for you. And that's their prerogative. That's how they would like to handle it. So I encourage you to ask everything that you can. Don't ask what they won't say, and they shouldn't, and we should never ask, prices, numbers, exact terms. I wouldn't do that if I were you. But yeah, ask the questions. And what's your experience? I know that, this is not your first rodeo. Have you had any key questions that have really helped you get the bid?
No, I think you covered most of it. It's just having a conversation with the listing agent, because they will vomit all kinds of information if you get them talking. And it depends on their personality, but you pretty much hit on every key aspect. It depends on how you ask it and how you interact with it. And if we remember some basic stuff about imitating their voice patterns and speeches with the other agent, then you will have a better connection with them. If you talk like me and you're talking to somebody like you, the voice patterns and speeches are completely different. So it's hard to mask that, but in order just to make a conversation piece and just try to get along with that agent, and it makes an unbelievable amount of differences when it comes to presenting an offer to a seller and saying, I know this agent. I've worked with this agent before. I've had conversations with this agent. I kind of know a little bit about this buyer. Or I kind of know a little bit about this seller agent. It makes a big difference when it comes to accepting it mentally for the seller to choose something based on that, because they make a connection with it.
Exactly. And, if you're newer to the business and that sounds like a death statement to you, again, you would be amazed how many agents just share an offer out of their electronic sign, platform and just say, please confirm receipt. And they wait for the listing agent to get it. The standard of practice when you send any offer, and certainly a multiple offer situation, is send it, ask for them to confirm receipt via email, and immediately pick up the phone and have a voice to voice. And I am a huge proponent of voice to voice for exactly what Adam Borders just said, is you develop so much rapport when you have someone's tonality and their kind of just their human spirit behind it. You hear the person, and that takes you such a long way. That is so much farther down the path for you than emailing it, requesting receipt confirmed, and sending a text. Hey, just sent an offer. There's an offer in your inbox. That's great. That's good. But if you're going to be excellent, you call and you have a conversation and you ask any additional questions as necessary. Rapport and relationship building is just important with the cross agent as it is with the clients that you're working with. Okay.
Yeah, I received one of those last night. Sight unseen, never showed the property, sent me a text message. You have an offer in your email, $75,000 under asking price.
Yeah.
It was fantastic.
That's pasta on the wall if I ever heard it. And so I would imagine probably if you're like me, I immediately pick up the phone and say, hello, it's Elissa with Keller Williams Little East. I'd love to talk with you about your offer, and ask the questions, because we work with people at the end of the day. We have to understand the what, the why, the where, the how, and it can help. I mean, again, our job is to help understand what they want, when they want it, and how we can use our expertise to bridge those two things. That's our job. So, the long and short, I'll open it up to questions, but again, it's high communication, high professionalism, clarity, clean offer, communicate to your buyers the terms that they are writing and what that means and what risk, how that falls on their risk spectrum, what they're willing to do. Be comfortable with an escalation, understand it. If you've never written one, get a mentor to help you with the language first, or a broker. Make sure you do it correctly and right, and follow up. What other questions? I'll open the floor up right now.
Hey, Melissa. Alyssa, I'm sorry. I said Melissa. Can you hear me?
I can.
Okay. I kind of logged on a little late, so I don't know if you talked about this, but did you touch on, in today's market with things the way they are, did you touch on, are you concerned with asking the listing agent if their property will appraise? Are they concerned about that with the way offers are coming in, 15 grand over, in some cases, or more? Do they ever get a concern with the home appraising? And if so, do they take that in consideration when they accept their offers?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, no, we haven't talked about that. I mean, that's an important question, because right now in a market where homes are selling 10 or more thousand over, which in the Louisville market, that's a lot. And I know we're seeing higher than that. Would a seller, and I've had a seller do this, accept a lower offer because they didn't want to deal with an appraisal problem? So, and Kevin, I believe I'm answering your question. If I'm not, feel free to go around that, but have that conversation about where the seller's mindset is in terms of where they're priced, because you might find out that they're going to be priced at the top of the market because that's where the listing agent's going to put them. And they should. This is a seller's market. You should be pricing at the very tip top if the house deserves it. How would your sellers feel if their market value is $350,000 and we're coming at $365,000? What's that going to look like on the other side? My clients are contingent on appraisal. Or if you have the client who says, no, I want $365,000 as my offer price, and I know the market value is $350,000, and I'm willing to waive appraisal, which means I'm going to have to come up with $15,000 if it appraises for $350,000, or whatever the difference is of the appraised value. But the appraisal conversation is huge, because you want to make sure that you're not bringing in this offer that just blows it out of the water, and then you're delayed closing because you've been going through an appraisal issue for the 3 weeks leading up to closing. That's a great conversation.
Yeah, and that's what I was hitting on, because you can actually win some of those coast deals like that, because people will come in and just put those out of bounds offers in just to win it, but you still have to have that conversation with the listing agent about how they feel about the house appraising, and do they take that in consideration. And I have been in situations where deals are won because it wasn't the highest offer, because the highest offer would have probably put them out of bounds and had appraisal issues. So that is something, definitely to take into consideration.
Yeah, no, absolutely. That what exactly happened with me as a listing agent earlier this year. They had about 3 or 4 different offers. It was the perfect house. One offer was just out of control, but we went back to that agent and said, this is going to create a problem with the appraisal. Why don't we come in at X, let's come in at a number that's more responsible, still makes them competitive, because we don't want appraisal issues. We don't want to do that. So yeah, but again, it's all the conversation, which is why when you're in multiple offers, you want to understand that market. You want to be the expert where you are, so that you can ask all the questions. You want to understand the situation of the seller. You want to represent the situation of your buyer, and kind of bring it together so that you create a win-win. That's in our culture, is to create a win-win. What else? Here's what I can leave you with. If you are ever writing an offer that is in a multiple competing situation, and you have any questions about anything, or if you say, hey, Elissa, or hey, another great, agent in the office who's done this before, am I missing anything? Is there anything that I haven't asked, that I haven't uncovered, to figure out what the best options are to present to my buyer to help them win out on this house? Reach out. We are here to help you guys. We are a helping culture. We want your buyer to win the house. We want you guys to succeed. We want you to be great. And if they don't win that offer, this is exactly what I'll leave you with. You call that listing agent up immediately, as long as you have your buyer's permission to do this, and you say, would your clients be willing to accept our offer as backup? And if you go under contract as the backup position, that means that should buyer number 1 terminate, that you are automatically in the primary position. And there's correct language around that we would guide you around. And you always include in that language too, for your buyer, that this offer can be rescinded in writing at any time. So that allows them to have their flag down on it. And they're also protected if tomorrow they go shopping again and find their next dream house. They could take that backup offer away and go pursue another property, all on the up and up. All right. Well, I hope this has shed some light on multiple offers. Feel free to send any questions my way after class. And if there's no other questions, I will let you guys go and have a great day otherwise. Thank you so much. Y'all have a great afternoon.
Thank you.